Hello, my friends, and welcome back. Thank you very much for being with me again today. This is part 2 of the smackdown that Andrew Tate gave that weasel Piers Morgan in Bucharest, Romania. An interview that was conducted a few days ago, but it was posted today. And I watched the whole thing, 1 hour and 15 minutes. And I'm going to make a series of videos, little clips from this excellent interview showing you Andrew Tate and weasel Piers Morgan, who I don't know exactly what this guy is doing, but he is doing a bad job anyway, because Andrew Tate is ready and says things without any, say it the way he sees them. So here is another clip, and I will play a few clips, and then the next one I already posted one, so let's go here. This is going to be about the vaccines and how Piers Morgan tries to make it sound nicely and defend the vaccines, the coronavirus, and this guy is not going to hold back.
The way it operates is it uses the MSM to purport lies, to inject slave programming into people's brains so that we live lives which are not good for us but are good for them. And I was sitting there unplugging it. Why would they sit there and say, we've put together this massive psyop, we're going to convince everybody to inject themselves with poison, and we're going to lock everyone in their houses, and it's all a lie, and we're going to let this one guy who everyone listens to.
Andrew, it wasn't all a lie.
Yes, it was.
It wasn't. There was a new novel coronavirus. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I'll tell you what. I'll tell you what the facts were, and you can then laugh at them.
He's telling us how all the facts were. Listen to this weasel.
Sure.
But there was a novel coronavirus,
Yeah.
COVID-19. It was killing thousands of people a day.
Really?
Yes,
That's
absolutely.
scary.
Yeah, and and I know people who died.
Who doesn't? I know people who died before Corona.
Fine, I'm sure people died of lots of things, but it was killing exponentially thousands and thousands of people, and then vaccines were developed at very high speed, and they managed to save.
Vaccines. He's going to talk about the vaccines. Exactly what I said, and I was banned for mentioning that. I'm going to show you.
My estimation, millions of lives. You may not agree with that.
Absolutely.
But those are facts as assumed by the body of scientific and medical experts in the world.
The body of scientific and medical experts, you mean the Matrix. I could get...
What is the Matrix?
The Matrix are a bunch of people who can come up with studies from the sky to say anything they want them to say, so they can use the MSM to purport garbage inside of people's minds. So you end up locked in your house, clapping for the NHS like a performing seal, injecting yourself with experimental poison for the 9th time. It's a lie. There was no reason...
Experimental, pop.
Everyone in their house. More people died from missed cancer appointments than anyone ever died of COVID. People always got the sniffles before COVID, and they've always got it since. Let me ask you a question.
Hang on,
sir.
it wasn't.
Where has COVID gone?
It wasn't.
Diseases don't go away.
It wasn't.
Where's COVID gone?
It wasn't. Well, the COVID strains have got milder, as indeed flu did. Flu used to
so
kill.
It's gone away.
Well, flu pandemic in about 100 years ago killed 50 to 100 million people, and it's got steadily milder over the decades since. This is normal medical science pathway for most pandemics, right? So on that, I mean, your sort of cast iron, it was all Matrix, MSM nonsense, is palpably untrue.
Well, I'll tell you why that's not untrue. Let me tell you my personal experience with COVID. I'm an extremely logical person. At the beginning, when everyone was dying, dropping dead in the streets in China, which I never saw, by the way, funny, and the Italian hospitals were full, English hospitals were never full, funny. Me and my brother sat there and said, if this disease is so deadly and can damage us as strong military-age males, then the world is over. So there's no point in hiding in our house. We decided to go to Sweden. On day 1 of COVID, day 1 when everyone still believed, we went to Sweden. Why does no one talk about the fact that Sweden was open the entire time?
I said that many times, and he said, oh, not the entire time, not the entire time.
Why does no one talk about the fact they didn't have masks or lockdown or vaccines? My brother and I partied in nightclubs 7 days a week for 3 entire months while everyone in England was locked in their house.
Sweden actually had a number of restrictions.
Not when I was there. It was open.
Not as draconian as we had in the UK, and there are certainly legitimate questions to ask about the scale of our lockdowns. I think.
Why is this guy trying to defend something indefensibly? You can defend this? What are you talking about? They didn't have at the beginning that not as everyone else. Why is that?
People panicked. They saw what was happening in Italy, which had the second best medical healthcare system in the world, and people were dying in massive numbers, and the hospitals were overrun. So people may have panicked.
Did you hear about the guy who died in a motorcycle crash and it was a COVID death? Did you hear about that one?
Well, there was certain
Downing Street didn't seem very concerned with
there
COVID.
was a
I thought
long
they were
there was a
partying.
long debate about people dying of COVID or with COVID. I know all that, but the bottom line for me, it is indisputable that COVID was a deadly pandemic that killed a lot of people. It turned out a lot of older people more than young people, but they didn't know that at the time, not for a long period. The vaccine saved millions of people's lives. There are legitimate questions about some of the boosters, about some of the side effects of the vaccines, as there are, by the way, with all vaccines. But the idea that COVID is some invention by the Matrix to suppress and control its people is for the birds, Andrew.
It's not about inventing it. It's about making it like this and then implementing mandates. That's what he's talking about. But Piers tries to avoid that. He switches the conversation from you deny everything. And that's not true. No, he said no. They build it. And he's going to talk about vaccines. What Andrew Tate thinks about vaccines, that's exactly what I said many times. And I made one video about vaccines, and that was when I was banned. And why? Because I read a definition from the dictionary and I didn't like it. But nevertheless, let's go and see what else these guys are saying here. Where is it? Right here. So he continues with the boosters.
The side effects of the vaccines, as there are, by the way, with...
And he's going to talk about, you can't really believe that. I mean, you're a smart person, you can't believe that. So if you believe that, automatically you're an idiot. That's how this guy operates.
vaccines. But the idea that COVID is some invention by the Matrix to suppress and control its people is for the birds, Andrew. It's for the birds.
It seems the birds and
I
I are
don't
friends.
think a smart guy like you actually believes that.
Of course I
And that's
absolutely
one of my problems.
believe that.
One of my problems I have with you is that I think you are intelligent, but I think you also adopt positions that you know are going to get the anti-matrix mob inflamed. And it's just these all-encompassing views you have. COVID was a load of nonsense.
What is Piers Morgan's job? What does he exactly want to do here? He's not trying to debate. He's trying to say someone. He tries to destroy his persona, attack his character. What exactly is Piers Morgan's job in this interview? Tries to denigrate this guy. Very weasel-like. But let's see what Andrew says.
Vaccines are all dangerous and killing more people than they say.
Never said that.
Never say that. I never said that.
Vaccine.
Well, COVID vaccine, well, you don't think they worked?
No, of course not, because the idea
Of
a
course they
vaccine,
worked.
The word vaccine in and of itself is that you
They
get
saved millions of lives.
That's exactly what I said. The word of vaccine is...
a vaccine, you do not get the disease. They changed the definition of vaccine in the dictionary so they could continue to inject us with this pointless poison. I had the vaccine for polio. I've never had polio. You got the vaccine for COVID, and you're bragging on...
That's exactly the argument I was making in that video in last year, April, something like this, and they banned me, they closed me. I made the same argument and I said, well, if you have this vaccine, and I gave the same exact example, polio, it stays. And they said, no, you come up, 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 up. It was the definition. I looked at the definition of a vaccine. The same thing this guy says. You don't have to, you catch it again? What the hell? But hey, that's a different kind of thing here. Let's go back to these guys.
How you have COVID for the 8th time, but it's not that bad because you've had 6 injections.
Let's go back.
This is the COVID vaccine.
Well, COVID vaccine, well, you don't think they worked?
No, of course not, because the idea
Of course they worked.
The word vaccine in and of itself is that you
They
get...
saved millions of lives.
If you get a vaccine, you do not get the disease. They changed the definition of vaccine in the dictionary so they could continue to inject us with this pointless poison. I had the vaccine for polio. I've never had polio. You got the vaccine for COVID, and you're bragging online how you have COVID for the 8th time, but it's not that bad because you've had 6 injections. It's insane. And please understand my position. Please understand that I'm a person who doesn't believe any of these studies, don't believe any of this garbage, don't believe the Matrix. I'm a person who was in Sweden for 3 months as everyone was afraid, locked in their houses, partying at will. It was perfectly fine. They had a lower death rate than the UK.
They had a much higher death rate than their neighbouring countries in Scandinavia. Did you know that?
They had a lower death rate
Did you
than
know
the
that?
UK.
Did you know that?
It doesn't, no, I didn't.
He just grabbed, did you know that? Did you know that? You didn't answer anything about the vaccines. You didn't give a counter argument to Tate about the vaccine, did you? He didn't. He just waited for something else minor to grab it and to make it big. That was not the point. The point was that this guy said, "I didn't take that." Like I don't have it. I didn't take that. I partied all the time. I didn't die. Those guys had a different thing, and you tell me, explain what the Matrix is. Creating, yeah, but they had a higher thing. Yeah, but they didn't, where was that ever saved lives? How do you know that? How do you know that? A lot of people say, well, I got COVID, and without that vaccine, I could have died. You don't know that. You don't know that. There's another argument I made, and these guys didn't like it. Anyway, my friends, here is the part 2 of this. Let's see if these guys have anything else to say on this one, because I have more clips.
Doesn't matter to you?
Of course not.
So you wouldn't compare them to their immediate neighbours. You'd only compare them to a country in the UK.
If you think lockdowns worked, Piers, if you think lockdowns...
I think lockdowns were only acceptable as an immediate panic move, which it was, before there were vaccines. The moment they had a successful vaccine program that worked, then
successful vaccine that worked,
no justification for further lockdowns.
You're a very important person, and you're very well respected.
I'm not important, I'm a journalist.
No, you're very important, and you're very well respected within the UK, and you've been famous for a very long time. Were you invited to the party at Downing Street, or were you not in that circle?
No.
No? Oh, that's a shame.
And I thought the
Because
behaviour...
they seemed very concerned about COVID on the TV,
And by the way,
they didn't seem to give a shit as soon as the TV was on.
I thought
that's exactly what I said in a previous video, long time ago. These guys partied over there, but they were telling us that, hey, COVID, very concerned, everybody masked, but we're partying it. So something was not kosher.
disgraceful, and I thought...
And this guy, instead of defending or being on Tate's side, this guy says, you understand this guy's saying something, I didn't like that. Yeah, but you understand the macro view on things? These guys tell us one thing, to do something, stay home, wear masks, do those things, and they were partying face to face. Do you understand? And Piers pretend, well, I didn't like that. Well, okay, that's the first step as a toddler. First step, now you have to go to become, I don't know, a boy. And after a boy, you become, I don't know, a teenager and then a young adult. You grow up, Piers. Jesus Christ.
Johnson and the people working at Number 10 who were having those parties, when I had friends of mine who were literally saying goodbye to their mothers on FaceTime on their phone because they weren't allowed in to see them. I knew people in care homes where it ripped
So you understood? No.
through and killed a third of the people in the...
He talks about pathos. Yes, I failed, but you understand how the things work? No.
home in 2 weeks. And the desperation that people felt. I had a cousin who lost his father who couldn't go and see his dying wife and so on.
It's disgusting.
There were terrible stories.
It's criminal.
Terrible stories.
It's disgusting. So let me ask you a question as a professional, because we're both adults and we're both very smart. As a professional, which is more likely, that the government believed COVID was deadly and everybody should be truthfully afraid and locked in their houses, but because they had this spirit inside of them and they couldn't resist the idea of a party, decided to risk their lives to party, or they lied on the television trying to scare everyone and enslave them and lock them in their houses, knowing it's garbage, knowing it's a lie, and not caring, and had a party behind everyone's backs so they didn't think they'd get caught? Which one is more likely as a professional, as a logical human?
Why don't we just...
He's not going to answer. He's going to ride like a weasel. Tate, 100% logical. And the guy is not going to answer because he knows he lost.
That they were a bunch of rank hypocrites, stupid people who were behaving utterly selfishly, to the extent that the Queen, when her husband, Prince Philip, dies, is in the church on her own, in a mass, with none of her family around her after losing a rock of 70 years. And it turned out the night before, Downing Street had, I think, 2 parties, including a karaoke party. I think that was shameful and disgraceful.
Well,
So we can agree on that,
We
right?
can agree on that, and we can wake up and start to realize, oh, maybe the government doesn't care about us. Maybe the government lies to us. Maybe they tell...
So here it is, my friends. This is part 2. You see how Piers is not interested in finding, not a common ground. You don't have to find a common ground, but at least to find the truth. No, he wants to bash Andrew Tate. He wants to tell, hey, you're bad, you're wrong, well, you're stupid, you're intelligent, but you can't really believe this, can you? I mean, I thought you were intelligent. Therefore, if you don't say what I want you to say, absolutely that results in you being an imbecile. Now that's Piers Morgan. I do not exactly know what he's doing. He's not, I know one thing, he's not an honest person. That's one thing. Because if he would be an honest person, he would ask other questions or the questions differently. He would agree on certain things. He seems to be like audience. I don't think he has anything else. Because he changes. Sometimes he's this way, the other way is this way. You can't say, oh, you're liberal, you're this, or you believe in, I don't know, virtues, values. No, he's whatever to create some problem somewhere. I don't know. He's dishonest. That's the thing about him, I think. Well, this is part 2. I'm going to go to part 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and so on. Thank you very much for being with me again today. Stay strong, stay smart, look for the truth, and be just.